Here we are. Okay, it's good to see everyone, all 9 of you, or all 8 of you, and 9 including me. Just give me 1 second. Mute. All right, so we're going to start our evening Bhagavad Gita study. So let me make sure we got the right microphone here and right speakers. Whoops. Give me 1 second. Speakers. One little setup thing here. Hare Krishna. All right, we are ready to go. So we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. Begin. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giri Baradhari Gopi Janaballabha Giri Baradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Malabha Giri Baradhari Gopi Jana Malabha Giri Baradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhadakacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Savaya Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Hoydas Thakur Ki Jai Ram say Koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidway the Gadadha Shivasati Go Bhakta Vijay Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shaima Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavanam Kijai Metaralam Kijai Jagannath Swami Kijai Yamunamai Kijai Shimali Lasi Devi Kijai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Go Premananda Hari Hari. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nivashesha Srinivadi Pashyata Devi Shatari. So, Om Ganat Miranda Shagaranjana Shlakaya Takshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance with a torchlight of knowledge. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Okay, so now we are going to continue with our Bhagavad Gita study. And of course, we're finishing up the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And as I mentioned yesterday, the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are described as the nectar part of the Bhagavad Gita. The whole Bhagavad Gita is nectar, as I always say, but the middle 6 chapters are particular nectar because they describe more about Krishna and help us connect more with Krishna, although basically all the chapters do. So, let me find, I thought I had the database all set up. It is all set up. Wait a second. Hold on a second. It's interesting. It's not showing up on my share screen. Just give me 1 second to correct these injustices so it'll show up. Just erase all that. Give me 1 second. It's always some computer glitchy. Show all window. Here we go. There we go. Here we go. Another important verse in the Bhagavad Gita, the 7th chapter. There's only a few more verses left in this chapter. So text 27. Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena parata sarvabhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. Icha, desire, dvesha, and hate, samutena, arisen from dvandva, of duality, mohena, by the illusion, bharata, sign of bharata, sarva, all. Bhutani, living entities, samoham, into delusion, sarge, while taking birth, yanti, go, parantapa, O conqueror of enemies. Translation, O scion of Bharata. That means a very reputable person in the family of Bharat, because he's a descendant of Bharat. O conqueror the foe. All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Wow. That's pretty interesting. Dualities, of course, in this particular context, let's describe what that means. I mean, the world is full of dualities, pleasure and pain, happiness, distress. There's dualities like I, you and I, or I and mine, and also seeing things separate from Krishna. And that's what specifically this verse refers to see things separate from Krishna. See Krishna there, and then everything else is somehow or other not connected to Krishna. or there's no Krishna. These are all dualistic types of conception. Of course, in another sense, we believe in duality and monism simultaneously, inconceivably. So what does that mean? Achincha Beta Beta Tapa. Achincha Beta Beta Tapa is Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, where we believe that everything is one and different simultaneously. Everything is one in the sense that everything is Krishna's energy. Everything is different because the energies have some variety, but they're all coming from Krishna. Just like you would say, the typical example Prabhupada gives is the sun and the sunshine are the same, but they're different simultaneously. So Prabhupada's explanation, the real constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy that's Maya. He cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. What does that mean? You desire something, and when you get it, or you don't get it, you get disturbed. Just like the typical example we give in this regard is just like when a little child opens up his Christmas presents that he's wanted for the whole year, and he asks Santa Claus for them, and he gets them and he plays with them, and then he gets angry after that. Or another example is we've seen many times when one goes to the movie theater that when they get out, they're actually quite disturbed. And that's the reason I realized that is because we used to distribute books to people going to movie theaters. And we'd always be very successful when they were going into the movie theater and extremely unsuccessful when they were leaving the movie theater. Another example is when we used to distribute books at Disney World. Very successful, but when they were coming out, they were very agitated because they'd spent all their money, hadn't done too many fun things, if any fun things, and they were frustrated. So there's hate, animosity, anger. So this is very important to understand. The illusory energy is manifest in this duality of desire and hate. I need this, I want that. Then whether you get it or not, if you don't get it, you hate. If you do get it, you're frustrated, which is a type of hate. So anyway, due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate can understand that Lord Sri Krishna appears by his internal potencies, that means his spiritual potencies. But those who are deluded by duality and nescience, 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 is ignorance. This is a fancy word for ignorance. Think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. In other words, they think that Krishna has a material body. They think that somehow or other God comes down, takes a material body and gives it up. I mean, it's Ajopi Samavyatman Bhutanam, Ichropi Sam Pratikim Swamadistaya, Samavami Atmamaya. Krishna says in the Gita, when I come down my original transcendental form. He descends. That's what avatara means. The word avatara technically means to cross down. Avatara. You understand? Down crosser. That's what it means. And it's interesting, sometimes we use the word avatara and incarnation simultaneously, or sometimes we use the word incarnation without actually understanding the meaning of the word incarnation, because incarnation means to take a body, basically. And sometimes in certain contexts, it just means someone who descends. But technically, if you analyze the word etymologically, it means to take a body. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, man and woman, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, up and down, my house, your house, thinking, this is my wife, this is my house, I'm the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Now, at the same time, you have to function on that level in this material world, because let's say if someone gets married and they're asked, who's this lady with you? Well, it's not my wife. This is another spirit soul. So you have to really function on the Maya level to be able to relate to people. Because if you don't, you'll probably end up being locked up in a mental institution. So you have to say those things. Yes. Is this your house? No, it's not my house. Well, technically you can think it's Krishna's house, but Krishna's given it to you to use. And Krishna's given you a wife or a husband to guide in Krishna consciousness. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish, therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in other words, we function in the world of dualities, we address things or use the nomenclature of dualities just to function in this world, but at the same time, there's something else deeper going on in our hearts and our consciousness. So we understand when we say, this is my house, it's not my house. Or when I say, this is my computer that I'm using, it's not my computer. Everything belongs to Krishna. But when we're talking to people, we can't say it's Krishna's computer, because then they get the impression that Krishna operates a computer, and Krishna doesn't operate a computer. Krishna doesn't need a computer. Computers are there because we are deficient. If someone has a perfect memory, can communicate without the need of the internet or without the need of any mechanical contrivance, doesn't need a computer, doesn't need the internet. But we are deficient, so we need a computer and need the internet. Okay, another important verse. This is really important. Yesham twandagatam papam jnanam punyakaramanam edwandva moha nirmukta bhajanti mam dragavatana. Yesham, whose? Two, but. Anandagatam, completely eradicated papam, sin, jnanam, of the persons, punya, pious, karmanam, whose previous activities, te, they, dvandva, duality, moha, delusion, nirmukta, free from, bhajante, engage in devotional service, mam, to me, dridavata, with determination. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So that may appear to be a little discouraging for some of us. We didn't really act so piously even in this life previously. What does we call previous lives? So how can we be determined? Well, Lord Chaitanya is very kind. If we simply take up the process and continue to act piously, following the principles, then we'll be able to have this determination, this firm determination, which is drita vrata. Vrata means like a vow, and drita means firm vow. So this firm, one-pointed determination, which we read about in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if you remember that verse. Vyavasayatmaka buddhya ekeha kurunandana. Those are on this path. They're very determined. They're one-pointed, like that. So there's another verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. Interesting verse. Fourth verse in the first chapter. Nirvrata tarshar ubagimana bhavat shrotra manobiramat kautama shlaka gunana vadat puman vidajeta vidal pashugnat. That everyone is attracted to Krishna's pastimes, except for those who are basically engaged in impious activities. But in this particular verse that I just quoted, it says pashugnat, those who are eating flesh. Because those who are killers of animals, whether you pay for it, whether you do it yourself, you're still a killer. That's a fact. So then they can't have that firm determination. They can't really understand Krishna consciousness fully. And it's important. They're not even pious. So it's very important to be pious. At least pious. Pious is not in and of itself sufficient to make you God conscious or Krishna conscious, but it's necessary, to use logical terms. Just like the example, explain what sufficient and necessary are. For example, if you want to take an airplane, it's necessary to go to the airport. However, it's not sufficient. Going to the airport is not sufficient to get you in an airplane, because you can go to the airport and not get on the airplane. You just go shopping. Because nowadays, hardly anyone goes to the airport. Purport. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously and have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it does require some practice, but with the right association, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. There's, like you see, there was this hunter Magrari who was engaged in the most nefarious activities of half killing animals, and he had the right association with Narada Muni, and he became a great saint. There was this prostitute who tried to lure the great devotee Haridas Thakur, and she had 3 days of association with him, and she became a super great saint. There was Valmiki Muni, the author of the Ramayana, who was a complete dacoit. Dacoit means killing people, robbing people, everything. But by association with the holy name and association with the Saptarishis, he became a pure devotee, even in this lifetime. So you don't have to worry about past lifetimes. Whatever's past is past. You don't have to worry about what you did before. It's just not consequential. Don't worry about the past. Whatever happened in the past, happened. It's another lifetime, or even in this lifetime, you can think of it as another lifetime. Now you're rightly situated. So then gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association, there it is again, of pure devotees, where in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. So association means hearing from great devotees, or being in the same physical location as great devotees, taking the great devotees' prashadam remnants. I mean, all these inject us with the bhakti shakti, the spiritual energy. And at the same time, if we associate with those who are not Krishna conscious, we get injected with the modes of nature. So it's association is, practically speaking, the most important aspect of advancing in devotional service, especially in the beginning. After one has advanced sufficiently in devotional service, one can associate through service, one can associate through the chanting, and may not need the external association because one is absorbed on the spiritual platform. But in general, we all need to be with people who are like-minded, because no man is an island. You need association, you need friendship. I mean, it's part of life. I mean, very few people are ready to go to the Himalayas and just sit there without anybody around, without any friends. It's kind of boring and not so enlivening. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, text 2, if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat sevam dwaram ahurvimukte. So the translation of that is serving the great devotees opens the door to liberation. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of ignorance. And tamo dwaram, the word dwaram means door. The ignorant door leads you to bad association, darkest region of ignorance. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated, impersonalism, of course, means people think that they're God. The whole point is, by nature, we are servants. If we're not serving God, we're serving Maya, our senses, the modes of nature. We're dragged here and there. But when we're serving God, we're doing it voluntarily out of love. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Supreme Personality, or to be fully engaged in this transcendental loving service with determination. So our own constitutional position begins with servant, and then it goes up and up and up and up through the different rasas, but at least servant of the Supreme Lord in devotion, not just servant who gets hired to do something, or a servant who is forced to do something, but servant who is just like so loving, trying to please Krishna. And then Krishna reciprocates. Then he tries to please his devotees, as we read the other day. A verse for the Bhagavad. Sadhava hridayam mayam sadhanam hridayam tvaham maranyat tena janati naham tebhyo managapi. Krishna says that I am in the hearts of my devotees. But Krishna also says in that same verse that my devotees are in my heart. And because my devotees are focused on me, do not know anyone else but me as theirs, Krishna says, I do not know anyone else but them as mine. So that's perfect reciprocation. I mean, we always want loving relationships. And in this material world, we don't really experience it. When we try our best, and then it ends up not really living up to our expectations. You know, we want to have meet, so many people do. Many people want to meet their counterpart. You know, there's a soulmate, they call it. Where is my soulmate? Kind of funny. I mean, we're all soulmates with each other. That's true. But people thinking specifically, you find that one person who's my soulmate. And they discover later on that soulmate just didn't live up to it. And Krishna is our soulmate, our ultimate soulmate, and he will live up to it. He does live up to it. So next verse. Jada maranamukshaya mam ashrita yatanti te brahmatad vidu kritsnam adhyatma mam karma chakilam. Jada, from old age, marana, and death, moksha, for the purpose of liberation, mam, me. Ashrita, taking shelter of, yatanti, endeavor, yea, all those who. Te, such persons, Brahma, Brahman, tat, actually that, vidu, they know, kritsnam, everything, adyatmam, transcendental karma activities, cha, also akilam, entirely. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So pretty self-explanatory. So if you want to get rid of old age, don't go get plastic surgery. I mean, I guess I'll tell the story. Many years ago, my father had plastic surgery. You know, they nipped and tucked in his face. And it just didn't look natural. And he still passed away. And he was still old. You know, so if you really want to, and another funny thing is that in the old, many years ago, before any of you were born, before I was born, there was this explorer. His name was Ponce de Leon. And he was looking for the fountain of youth. He actually thought that if he went to Florida and looked around, that he would eventually find this mystical fountain of youth in which you can bathe and come out young again. So he looked and he looked and he looked, and all he found was old people. No, he didn't find old people, but Florida is actually a place of old people, especially South Florida. And actually, there's an interesting story. Let me just tell this story. It's not related with the verse, but it's about someone who became young again by bathing in a particular lake. This is a true story because it's from the Bhagavad. Once upon a time, there was this king Saryati, and he had a daughter Sukanya. And they were traveling around with the army, he was a king. And they visited the hermitage of this sage called Chaivanamuni. Now, Chaivanamuni, he was quite old and didn't look so good. So anyway, so he was quite old, but he was a very powerful yogi. So he was meditating inside the earth. And he was peering out from inside the earth to see what was happening. So this young girl, Sukanya, was seeing the holes in the earth where he was using a peer out. And what she did is she just thought it was just some light there, and she poked one of the holes. And he got upset. The sage got so upset that basically all the king's soldiers and all the king's men were constipated. So I think that's kind of hard. And they were really in agony. And so the king understood somebody has made some problem here. So he prayed to the sage. And then he noticed that the sage kept looking at his daughter. Really old guy. I mean, like old and wrinkled, anything. And the sage was ready to just like destroy everything. So he thought, well, my daughter did it, so maybe she should get married to him. So here's this young, beautiful girl. She marries this old, decrepit sage. Okay, so he goes, oh, God. Okay, my father says I got to do it. Got to do it. Oh, no. So she gets married to him, and she behaves pretty nicely. And the sage becomes so pleased with his wife that he thinks she needs a new husband. She needs a young husband. So then what he does is he calls for these heavenly doctors, which are called the Ashwini Kumars. There's two of them. They're twins. And he says, I really need to become young again because, my wife's young, so make me young again. So, all right, and they said, okay. And he said, we'll have a deal. I'll give you this celestial drink that you don't ordinarily get because you're not really up there with the other demigods. And just make me young. Okay. So they create this lake and they go swimming in the lake, go underwater in the lake, and they all come out handsome. She could hardly understand who was her husband, but these doctors actually said, this is your husband. And she's so happy she gets a brand new husband without changing husbands. Pretty good. That's a pretty good deal for her. So she gets this brand new husband. And in the meantime, just to finish the story, then the sage gives them this thing called the somaras. This is the special drink. It's not marijuana or anything like that. And Indra thinks these guys are not supposed to have this drink, and he tries to just destroy them by throwing lightning at them. But the sage is so powerful, he's able to paralyze the hand of Indra. Wow. And later on, Sukanya, remember that's the young girl's name, she comes, she's there with her husband, who's nice and young. So her father comes, and he sees his daughter with this young guy. He thinks, you're acting in a disreputable way. What have you done? Where's your husband? And you're here with this young guy? And she very proudly says, he is my husband. He got youth again. So there are certain circumstances, but that youth is not eternal. Remember that. There are certain circumstances. I think of other circumstances where some people became young again, but I'm not going to tell those stories. But don't bet on it, and it's not eternal anyway. Yeah, there are certain things with the demigods you can do. Not here on Earth planet, not with genetic engineering that you can do to get young again. And if there was something here on the Earth, I would have taken it already. So anyway, so intelligent persons who are endeavoring from liberation from old age and death, that's the only solution. And then actually Brahman, that means they're on the spiritual platform. And because they're absorbed in Krishna's activities, Krishna's Leela, they're attractive. When you hear about Krishna, you become very attractive. Purport. Birth, death, old age, and diseases affect this material body. Tell me about it. But not the spiritual body. There's no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains a spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the personality of Godhead and engages in eternal devotional service, is really liberated. Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spirit. It is said that one should understand that he is Brahman, spirit, soul. This Brahman, which Brahman actually means the greatest, also means spirit. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service as described in this verse. The pure devotees are transcendently situated on the Brahman platform and they know everything about transcendental activities. 4 kinds of impure devotees who engage themselves in the transcendental service of the Lord achieve their respective goals. And so this is the Prabhupada's referring to a previous verse, the 4 types of people who are not quite pure. They want wealth, they're inquisitive, they're in distress, like that, or they want knowledge. These are all 4 ulterior purposes. I mean, purposes other than simply wanting to be Krishna conscious. So by the grace of the Supreme Lord, when they are fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy spiritual association with the Supreme Lord. So for whatever reason you come to Krishna, you will get Krishna as long as you're careful to avoid offenses. But those who are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme Lord in the Supreme planet, unless they get the association of the devotee and just wakes them up. Hey, these demigods, they are just as material as anything else. Even the less intelligent Brahman realized persons cannot reach the supreme planet of Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, Mam Ashritya, are actually entitled to be called Brahman, because they're actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons have no misgivings about Krishna unless they are factually Brahman. Just another point is there are other planets other than Krishna Loka in the spiritual world, and some people are rightly situated, that is their nature, when they go to these other planets. They're great devotees of Lord Ram, for example, even Lord Chaitanya's associates, some of them were great devotees of Lord Ram, and that was their right situation. So there's nothing wrong with that. But Prabhupada here is indicating that he is engaged in the service of Krishna in his original form in Krishna Loka. Those who are engaged in worshiping the form or archer of the Lord, who are engaged in meditation on the Lord, archer means like the deity, simply for liberation from material bondage, also know, by the grace of the Lord, the purports of Brahman, Adibhuta, etc., as explained by the Lord in the next chapter. So Adibhuta means things you see. So, and text 30. This is a little technical for us. Sadibhuta didaivam vam tariyagyam chaye viduhu ayena kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Sa, Adibhuta, and the governing principle of material manifestation, Adidaivam, governing all the demigods, Ma, me, Sa Adiyagyam, and governing all sacrifices, Cha also, yea, those who, Viduhu, know, Prayana, of death, Kale, at the time, Api, even, Cha, and Mam, me, Te, they, Viduhu, know, Yukta Cheta Saha, their minds engaged in me. Translation, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods, of all methods of sacrifice, who can see all these things, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So the next chapter is going to deal with that particular subject matter of leaving the body and what determines where we go, etc., like that. So full consciousness of Krishna means knowing that Krishna, everything in one sense is Krishna, and everything is different from Krishna, but everything is Krishna's energy, and also understanding the purpose of everything. So ontology, teleology, to use big words. Ontology means the nature of everything. Teleology means the purpose of everything. So if you know that, then you can know Krishna at the time of death. I think it's quite easy to know that. But in order to know that, you have to be purified. Because knowing that is not simply theoretical. Knowing that is realization, which requires yesham tvandagatam papam, as was the previous verse, coming to an end of all nonsense activities and simply dedicating and loving Krishna. By chanting his holy names, actually, that's all you have to do. If you just chant Krishna's names, everything is revealed to you automatically. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the time of death, such a Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. So Goloka Vrindavan is the place where Krishna has his intimate pastimes in the spiritual world. Goloka Vrindavan has two neighborhoods. One is Mayapur, and the other one gets broken up like that. And Mayapur means that Lord Chaitanya is in Goloka Vrindavan. This is his place in Goloka Vrindavan. Goloka means the planet of the cows. Vrindavana means the forest of Brinda. Brinda is an expansion of Yogamaya. Yogamaya is the potency, the internal or spiritual potency of God that helps Krishna, that it actually facilitates Krishna's pastimes. So it's the forest of Brinda, Goloka, the planet of the cows, the forest of Brinda. So anyway, in Goloka Vrindavan, you have this neighborhood of where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has his pastimes with his devotees. And you also have Krishna's neighborhood, which is, the Vrindavan forest and everything like that. And Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are chanting, dancing, separation from Krishna. And devotees who are devotees of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna and Vrindavan, they can be in both places simultaneously. Wow. And in Goloka Vrindavan, there's areas where Krishna is worshipped in a more awe and reverent mood, and there's areas where Krishna is worshipped in a more intimate mood. So our aspiration is to go to Goloka Vrindavan and Mayapur in the spiritual world, Navadvip in the spiritual world, and be associated with Krishna in a very intimate mood. Just to either play with Krishna, be the parent of Krishna, or servant of Krishna, or in the conjugal attraction serve Srimati Radharani. So this is the aspiration of the devotees. Most devotees in the Krishna conscious movement. Some of them want to go to Ayodhya, which is Lord Brahma's place, which is a different planet. Now we're talking about planets. It's not exactly how they look in the material world. The Goloka Vrindavan planet is like a big lotus flower. You've never seen a planet in this world that looks like a lotus flower. So when we talk about planets, it's basically locations. It's not just globes like we have here in this world. This 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord, and by his grace one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when I associated with Prabhupada, that was the result. Prabhupada emanated Krishna consciousness, exuded Krishna consciousness, just by being in his presence. I remember the first time I saw Prabhupada, I entered the spiritual world for all intents and purposes. It was just like, here I am, go to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada carried, wherever Prabhupada was, wherever a pure devotee is, that's a holy place. Just like in our temples where Prabhupada resided, the different rooms where Prabhupada resided are considered places of pilgrimage. And pure devotees like Prabhupada purify even original places of pilgrimage. What do I mean by original? Let's take, for example, the Ganges River. The Ganges River comes from the spiritual realm, actually washes the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when the Ganges was coming down, the personification of the Ganges, Ganga Devi, said, I ain't coming there. Those sinful rascals will bathe in me. So she was assured that, yes, sinful rascals will bathe in you, but pure devotees will also bathe in you. And they will actually absorb whatever karma is dumped by these sinful rascals. And so she was assured and agreed to come down. So that's important, that association. It just like energizes you. And by his grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness and good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness, and it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Now, Prabhupada is hinting at the gradual process, and we've talked about this before. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangota Vajanakriya. In the beginning, this is mentioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You find it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and also Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the beginning, there's a little bit of interest, a little bit of faith, a little bit of trust, and then one associates with great devotees. And by association with great devotees, sadhu sangha means to associate, sadhu means those who are great devotees. Bhajana Kriya, one begins to copy the great devotees and do the same thing they do. You know, Prabhupada chanted, we chant. Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya, and one engages in the activities of bhajan, or cultivation of love. And then after that, one starts to get rid of unwanted things. I don't mean your old furniture, which probably you should get rid of too, but unwanted things like lust, anger, greed, because these things are actually driving us crazy. When you're thinking, I want more and more and more, and you're lusting after enjoying someone or something, it just like makes you miserable. Miserable. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy. I mean, envy. I saw envy today with some of my pets here. Pets. Pets. No, I'm living here in a house and I have animals that come every day to pray to me. No, they don't come to pray to me. They come to take prasadam. I put prasadam out. So you have these squirrels here. I think everybody knows what a squirrel is. So what happened today is I put some nice prasadam out for them. And this big fat squirrel comes and he eats. And the other squirrel, they're looking, just like peeping their little heads to see what's happening. And if he actually sees them out of the corner of his squirrel eye, he chases them out. I'm not going to share any of this with you. You know, envy. And they're, of course, envying him too. And there was plenty of prasadam. He could have certainly shared it all, but it was just like, he was overeating. So anyway, so that's envy. It's very interesting. So anyway, getting back to the point. So anarthas, anarthas means things you don't want: lust, envy, anger. Anger isn't so pleasant, and greed, illusion, fear. We're all afraid. What's going to happen? What if so and so gets reelected? Oh no! Oh no! What's going to happen? What if there's an atomic bomb attack? What if everyone is a lizard? That's so funny. Anyway, so we think we're constantly, paranoid, fearful like that. So once Krishna consciousness, one understands that Krishna is protecting you. I mean, of course, you take adequate measures to protect yourself, but ultimately you understand Krishna. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man. Here's the four types of people again: the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, disease, and worship of the Supreme Lord. So I was giving a summary of some of the verses there. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. In other words, other than Krishna consciousness. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby actually attains his constitutional position as the eternal servant of Lord Krishna. That means just chant the holy names and follow a few simple rules and regulations. It doesn't matter if you are a grahasta or a brahmachari or a sannyasi or whatever, a renounced person, tired. Chant the holy names. That's all you got to do. And actually, I was reading the Srimad Bhagavatam today. The last verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies the Sankirtan of the holy names. I mean, after the whole Bhagavatam is finished, the last verse is a glorification of Sankirtan, of chanting the holy names. Everything is there. Krishna is present in his holy name. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all of his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dridavata. We heard about that before, and is the beginning of bhakti yoga, or transcendental loving service. Just be convinced. This is it. I'm going to be happy. Because what are your objectives? Your objectives to be happy, to have knowledge, to have loving relationships. And these are important objectives. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the substance of that conviction. Substance. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the knowledge of the Absolute. And in the 8th chapter, we're going to learn how to leave the body, or what we should be doing when we leave the body. And the 8th chapter is called Attaining the Supreme, and that we're going to go to tomorrow. So now we're going to open up everything for questions. Hold on a second. We've got a lot of nice devotees listening. We'll take you off of mute. All right. So who wants to speak first? No one. No one has any questions tonight. Everyone has understood everything perfectly. Where's Nalini Kant? Is he listening? I do not see him. And there, Rishikesh, you have any questions? Because they're the ones who ask the questions most often. Nobody has a question.
Krishna Gurudev, this is Rishikesh. Sorry, I was on mute. I was speaking on mute. Gurudev, what's the difference between aparad and karma? Like a devotee.
Aparad and karma.
Aparad and karma and bad karma basically.
Aparad and karma. Well, aparad means offense. Karma means activity. It means also the result of a particular activity. The result you get from aparadas is not karma. Karma is the result you get from some material activity. For example, if someone eats meat or an animal, then the karma is they have to become that animal in next life. That's karma. I think, is that the question you asked? I mean, it's a pretty simple question.
No, I mean, I was wondering, the devotees normally have aparad. They don't cover. They normally suffer from aparad, not from karma, right? So,
No, technically, no. You're right. So technically, the devotees, yeah, mostly they are suffering from offenses against the holy name, offenses against devotees, offenses against the dham, the spiritual activities, offenses against the deities. So one has to be really careful. Offenses against the guru. One has to be very, very careful. And devotees don't have karma, but there's a caveat there. They may get a token reaction for their past activities. And that token reaction is not karma, it's administered directly by Krishna to remind them of what they did before. Or, let's say if one is a guru, one may get a little slap in the face if they accept too many unqualified disciples. So, Prabhupada said, before one takes the position of guru or the service of guru, one has to be spiritually situated, or else they can be quite dangerous. And Prabhupada said, if you initiate people and they're not up to snuff, the guru may have some unpleasant dreams or even get sick to a certain extent. Prabhupada one time said he was getting sick because of the karma of his disciples. So one has to be very careful. So, yes, there's a difference between them, and devotees, if they're chanting, if they're following the regulated principles, are not doing anything that has a karmic reaction. But there's a Krishna reaction too. Like if you do something, not breaking the regulated principles, not karma or anything like that, but if you do something that's not so nice, Krishna may give you a little gentle or not so gentle nudge. But it's Krishna. It's the Krishna factor. In other words, devotees are willing to be spanked by Krishna because Krishna loves you. And not only if you're doing something wrong, I mean, sometimes you're just like Krishna wants to push you in a certain direction and you're pursuing a little bit different direction. And Krishna makes the one direction that you're trying to pursue like impossible. Like Prabhupada with this Jhansi program, Prabhupada was trying to make a center in Jhansi, and he had this old beautiful building, and the building was taken away, and it was actually like Krishna was just like putting Prabhupada to a little bit of distress. So it wasn't karma and it wasn't aparada, it was actually just the Krishna factor. So that's how we should see things. In any case, it's always Krishna for a devotee. Whether Krishna is showing us the effects of an aparada, whether Krishna is showing us a token reaction for our previous nonsense activities, or Krishna is just pushing us in the right direction. Sort of trying to make us a little more detached, or trying to make us do a particular service that we may be reluctant to do. I mean, there's all these different types, but it's not karma, and it's not. Devotees, any devotee who's chanting the holy name is not suffering karma. So, Madhava, you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So the question was, we were in Bhakti Vriksha program, and then there always lot of times in purport of Prabhupada everywhere, it says Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So
right.
Why not Supreme Personality of God? Why Godhead? How do we understand this? That's what the question came up.
Why the use of head?
Godhead. Why not Supreme Personality of God? That's it. Why
Well,
Godhead?
Prabhupada sometimes says Supreme Personality of God, but the word head
Yeah.
Basically means he's a person. I mean, I think that's why Prabhupada added that, because God is a person, and a person has a head. Because if you just say supreme, I guess it's a little repetitive. Supreme personality of God would be all right. The supreme personality of God head means he's the. It also it repeats the same thing, but sometimes when you repeat the same point twice, it's greater stress on the point. It's repetitive. Because when you say personality, Godhead also means personality. And when you say supreme, that means the head also. So it's repetitive, just so we get the point. It's Prabhupada's expression. Supreme personality.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
All right. I think
Hare
Mother.
Krishna.
Oh, we got more questions. Who else?
Yes, this is Sumukh here, Gurudev.
Okay.
This shloka in Bhagavad Gita, when it says, if someone offers me love and devotion, a fruit, a leaf, a flower, and water, I accept it.
Yeah.
So how does one can know that Krishna has accepted what he have offered him?
Are you offering with love and devotion?
Yes.
That's how So love, what does love and devotion means? Krishna, I just wanted to please you. And also, if you're offering to your spiritual master who has love and devotion, hopefully your spiritual master has love and devotion. I can say that because I am a spiritual. I'm not. It's not that I'm committing an offense against anyone except for myself. So when we offer something, we offer to Guru, and Guru offers to his Guru, Guru offers to Krishna ultimately. So therefore, even if you do not have any love and devotion, then the Guru, hopefully, in this case, has love and devotion, and then he's offering to Krishna. So therefore, it's Krishna accepts. Okay?
Yes.
That's how you know. Just every time you make an offering, you can just send me a message and ask if Krishna accepted it. Send me an email. I just made an offering. Does Krishna accept it? And I'll say, yeah, I remember Krishna accepted it. That would be nice. That would be nice. Okay. So another question. Oh. Okay. Good to see you. You're not going to be a doctor now.
I don't know. I've applied for the other program, but I'll still see what happens because they knew see if there's still space. If not, then I'll have to continue this year.
You're going to be a psychologist then.
I don't know. I need your blessings.
Actually, we need more psychologists because with the present politicians we have all over the world, they need to be analyzed. All right, so what's the question?
So I've been reading Chaitanya Bhagavad.
Yeah.
And there was a story of Sri Mukunda who used to like do Krishna Kirtan as well. And but then I got really confused because every time he used to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he used to run away because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wasn't like Krishna conscious. Like he did not discuss Krishna Katha with him. It was just like something like logic or something. So I got really confused why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing that when he incarnated for Krishna Katha.
All right, so what happened, so let's tell the story in brief. That in the beginning of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Nimai Pandit at that time actually, he didn't act like a devotee. He acted like someone who's simply interested in something called Nyaya. Nyaya means logic. And he was just arguing with everybody. Now, the reason for that is that he wanted to show us the importance of accepting the spiritual master. Because he showed himself to be the greatest devotee, and he's Krishna too. As soon as he took initiation from Ishwara Puri, then there was this transformation. So he was, by his life, because as Prabhupada said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a teacher who is asking a rhetorical question. I don't know if you know what rhetorical means. Rhetorical means you go before the class and say, how much is 1 and 1? And then the teacher shows you like this, as if the teacher didn't know. So we find this in the case not only of Lord Chaitanya, but in the case of many great devotees. It appears that they come to Krishna consciousness, whereas in fact they were already Krishna conscious, but they're showing us the necessity, just like Prabhupada, for example. Prabhupada was Prabhupada's an interested devotee. I mean, eternally liberated, whatever. But what happened is that he was a member of Gandhi's liberation movement, which is simply a mundane movement. I don't want to offend anybody, but it was simply mundane because, you know, India didn't get liberated from the material world. And so, but when he came in contact with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was changed completely externally. So this is a pastime. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, very, very similar. You know, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was young, I mean, he was called like the Prahlad in the family of demons, basically. And, you know, he went through a lot. He was actually very attracted to Christianity rather than the Vedas in the beginning. If you know his story, he was just like, he really read the Bible and was really into that, because what was presented in India was the misconception of what Hinduism is. You know, so he wasn't interested in that. But when he got the Chaitanya Charitamrita, everything changed. So you'll find this is a common denominator in the lives of great personalities, that they become transformed. Not every one of them, actually practically every one of them, they become transformed when they come in contact with the guru or some shastra like that. So that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's showing us the necessity of association. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
By example, he's showing, like Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya is showing us how to be a devotee. Like Prabhupada is showing us how to be a devotee. He's taking the position of a devotee. I mean, if Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had started the Sankirtan movement without taking initiation, that would give us the message that, no, you don't need of initiation. You just have to chant the holy name, no need of sadhu sangha or anything like that. So that's why it was like that. Okay, good question.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
All right, don't worry, be happy. Be happy, be happy. And one final question from Mother Tulsi. Oh, Charna, you have a question.
I have 3, but okay. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, Krishna. Okay, if we want to go to some other planet, where is the planet of Nrsimhadev Bhagavan? For example,
Prabhupada said that the non-human forms of Godhead don't have planets in the spiritual world.
okay, but how can we choose to go maybe to some other planet? No planet, but a place where is the, for
Yes, you
example,
can go, I'm sure that there's some where Lord Nrsimhadev is worshipped all the time, a Hobalam or something like that. You can go there. But Prabhupada specifically said the non-human forms of the Lord don't have planets in the spiritual world.
so that's all together. How can we know that we can? How can we know that we are sure that we can go somewhere else?
When we keep chanting, we will realize who we are in the spiritual world and where we're supposed to go. But right now we don't know. Right now we don't know where.
Okay, and I want to ask on the start of this third, they said persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path. So
Prabhupada's talking about pure devotees there. Sometimes that's referring to pure devotees. But you know, obviously sometimes we find people acting in Krishna consciousness who do deviate, but you have to understand in the context, Prabhupada is indicating pure devotees.
And this beginning of the consciousness of Krishna is with people, associating with people. So if we don't have temples and don't have so much place, no place here in Belgrade, there is no place no more.
So then get on my Zoom class every night.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's for now.
Yes. And just one funny thing that I want to mention, but I think we're going to end right now, but people, I was just thinking when you say, how do you know which planet you want to go to? I was just thinking, I just want to go to Fiji. It's like that, somehow or other, Krishna's preventing me from going to Fiji. See all the nice devotees there. And Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Europe, Belgrade. I mean, right now we're just trapped here. Also Sacramento. Where else? But yeah, I think I covered everybody, and India too. Anyway, okay, we should end now. Thank you very much. We'll see everybody tomorrow evening. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.